Hello and welcome to Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro. My name is Laurie Hassall and today I'm joined by Julian Aldridge. Julian's our regional manager in the international region and has significant experience, 20 years in total, with 10 years in exploration and 10 years in consultancy. Now Julian's a QP and CP in many metals, many commodities, precious and base metals. Now today's topic of discussion is all about gold, which Julian has a lot of experience in. So Julian, what is gold and what are its applications?
Well, gold obviously is a extremely shiny, lustrous, precious metal. In terms of, gold's very, very interesting because gold's sort of it's the classic ore mineral. It's the classic metal, isn't it? It dates into prehistory, so no one really knows when it was first mined, because it can be found in native form in the ground. So it's quite likely that prehistoric man was able to get it out. Now, whether it was anything more than a curiosity at that age, because I don't think it would have had that much in terms of use, is very, very debatable. But what it's sort of used for nowadays, or has been used for throughout the ages, creeping up to the present day, is that it now has a fairly sort of specialist technological uses. It's used in mobile phones. It's got various electronic applications. It's got a very low electronic resistivity. It's extremely malleable. But the main things that it's used for, as it has been throughout history, are jewelry, supporting currency, on account of the fact that it is a physical, tangible asset. And for those reasons, it's also used as a financial safe haven. People buy gold in times of crisis on account of the fact that it has a physical form. It's a tangible piece of material in a time where things that are more sort of esoteric, government bonds, shares, values in companies, businesses is in higher state of flux, which brings us on nicely to the present day. We're recording this in April 2024.
Gold prices
The gold price is at an all-time high. It broke $2,400 last week.
Yes.
So I think that is an effect of global uncertainty. Investors across the world have a tendency to turn into sort of fiscal hermit crabs at the first sign of uncertainty in the markets. And I think the ongoing situation in the Middle East, and the ongoing situation between Russia and its neighbours around the border, are causing uncertainty and making investors leap to something that's always been seen as a financial safe haven.
Something that's tangible.
Yeah.
They're the biggest drivers behind the gold price.
I think they're the macro drivers. Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you've got a lot of gold miners that are currently rubbing their hands, as investment is a lot easier to get hold of, and the value of their assets has suddenly gone through the roof.
Okay. Well, thanks, Julian. And so moving on to geology, and so what are the specific geological environments and deposit styles that are associated with gold?
Well, interestingly enough, for a metal that is so rare, or is considered to be so rare, it's found fairly ubiquitously. It's found across the world in a number of different deposit types. It's found in all sort of geological terrains. The style of deposit is very different, but changes in the type of terrain. And the key to it being so rare, or the reason that it is so rare, is that although it occurs throughout all these different geological terrains and areas, it occurs at generally very, very low concentrations.
Yes.
So consequently, the economics of extracting it are what dictate whether it can be brought out the ground or not. There's the famous example of seawater. There is gold in seawater, and if we reach the point where we can economically extract it at the concentration that it is in seawater, all bets are off. But for now, it's very, very very low grade, very low concentration, and we just don't have the technology to extract it profitably. More specifically, in different terrains, you get it in different types of, mineralogical settings or mineralization settings, I guess you could say. You get it associated with intrusives and plutons, relatively low concentration, but tends to make very, very large tonnage deposits. And you get that associated with mantle-derived melts, also with crustally derived melts. You can get it in sedimentary hosted deposits if your source of fluid is gold rich, and your setting for the mineralization can suitably trap gold. You get it in vein deposits. You get it associated with volcanic hydrothermal systems. It's very wide range. You get it in placer deposits. Specifically, you get quite unique types. There are some deposits such as Olympic Dam in Australia, where it's associated with a multitude of different elements. And there are competing theories as to how the gold was concentrated into that deposit. Another very famous example is the Witwatersrand Basin, the Wits in South Africa, where you have very, very high concentrations of gold along relatively thin bands within sedimentary units. Now, these are very, very ancient, and the interesting thing is that they show both sedimentary characteristics and hydrothermal characteristics. Sure. So there's obviously been a complex interplay of the two things that have led to economic concentrations of gold along these relatively thin bands, which, for anyone who knows anything about South African mining, can be at incredible depths within the crust, and yet are at such a high grade that it's worth following them.
So, sorry, Julian, I'm just going to ask you a question on, you've talked about a wide range of deposit styles and geological environments. In terms of being qualified as a QP or a CP, do you think in gold, do you think you need to have experience in all of those deposit styles to call yourself a CP or QP?
Yes, that's a very, very good question, and I think it's something that's very timely. I think with gold, perhaps much more than other commodity types, you can only really consider yourself capable, in the legally defined sign-off competent person or qualified person, if you're looking not only at the commodity of gold, but also in terms of the deposit type as well.
Absolutely.
For example, there's orogenic gold, which is exists in very, very ancient terrains and is usually thin vein type deposits or stockwork type deposits. If you've spent your career working in copper gold porphyries, you shouldn't then consider yourself competent to sign off on an orogenic gold deposit, absolutely, despite it containing the same commodity.
Yes. And in terms of just moving on to mineralogy and metallurgy, are there any specific areas that are unique to gold in terms of recovery?
So the hosting of gold in terms of mineralogy is as various as it is in deposit types. The coarseness of gold dictates how it can be extracted. It's also can be hosted as free gold. It can be hosted in sulfides. It can be hosted as micro inclusions within certain portions of the rock. It can be remobilized. Gold can be hosted in a multitude of different ways, and that can dictate the method of extraction. And that's why geometallurgy is so important in gold deposits. All the easily extractable deposits have generally been found and extracted. In my experience now, gold is either associated with a more technologically demanding method of extraction, i.e. it's hosted within sulfides, or it's tiny superfine gold particles which require specific grinding types, or it's associated with polymetallic deposits. So it actually only gives you partial credit for your extraction.
Yes.
There's several deposits I've worked with where it's associated either with massive copper sulfides, or massive lead zinc sulfides, and there's been some sort of later overprint of gold as the hydrothermal systems collapsed. So there are very, very specific considerations.
Right, and particularly now, as you say, with the deposits becoming more and more complex.
Absolutely.
And in terms of mining for gold, I'm guessing this is going to be a range in terms of mining styles, depending on the deposit style.
Yeah, I mean, gold ranges from a situation where if it's low grade, but it's there in enough tonnage, it can be hugely profitable to extract it if you can extract it by a large enough open pit method.
Yeah.
For example, there's the Rekadik project in Pakistan. Runs between about 0.3 grams per ton gold and 1 gram per ton gold at the absolute, the absolute apex of highest grades. But that's well over 1 billion tons. So that's absolutely, in terms of contained resources, that's a huge deposit.
Huge.
And the economy of scale makes it worth mining. Now, if you have to go underground, you need to have a much higher grade deposit, but you can have much lower tonnage. There's no issue with, tonnage has a much sort of weaker dictation on whether you can extract it or not.
Right.
The most interesting thing about gold is that the head grade of gold mines is very, very close often to the cut-off grade. So that makes it very, very strongly sensitive to the gold price.
Fluctuations.
So you have a situation where break-even cut-off grade can be at a gold price of $1,700 to $1,900, which until recently was a very, very high gold price. Now it's $700 above those. So those deposits have become
all of a sudden
have become very, economic. Not only economic, but potential to make a big amount of money. You're not just looking at marginally above cut-off grade. Yeah. You've got a fair distance above cut-off grade there. For every ounce you can extract of gold, you're making $700 on that, rather than making, say, $50 or $100. Again, so if the gold price drops, you suddenly find a lot of gold deposits will go on to care and maintenance.
Yeah.
So that is something that is a very big driver.
It's very, very sensitive.
It's extremely sensitive to cut-off grade.
Yeah. And in terms of gold mines around the world, what are the key areas, key countries that the gold is extracted?
Well, it covers a lot of countries around the world. If we start North America, you have a lot over on California and Nevada. There's the gold strike trend in Nevada. Then if moving to South America, there's quite a lot of gold associated with the big copper deposits down there. A lot of gold deposits in their own right.
Yes.
Often porphyry and epithermal associated. Mountain belts are usually the place. Currently active accreting mountain belts above subduction zones are the ideal place to look for gold deposits. So places like the Andes, places like the Carpathian Mountains, or heading through down towards the Himalayas, are areas to be, or areas to look at. That is a very good source of mantle-derived fluids, which generally tend to be richer in gold than those derived from the crust. Not always, but but sometimes. But then again, if you move back into the far reaches of geological time during the sort of the Proterozoic period, you have a lot of these crustal remnants, such as the Yilgarn Craton in Western Australia, the West Africa Craton in West Africa. These are all very, very gold rich.
Yeah. So, Julian, you've talked about the history of gold and also the modern state of the gold markets and gold mining. What does the future hold for gold, in your opinion?
There's a few schools of thought on this. Gold, other than its value for supporting economies, or its value as a safe haven, tangible assets in time of crisis, it doesn't really have that many uses. and it doesn't really have that many uses that it can't be substituted for either. So I think the key thing is that with gold, if it was only mined for things that it was used for in terms of actual technological or physical industrial use, it would be something like gallium, in the sense that it would be something that a little off-taker credit from mines that were focused on mining other items. That's not my view on it. There's a school of thought that says we should stop gold mining. It's an incredible waste of time, money, energy. It's destructive. It's environmentally damaging. And these are all valid concerns. And I think that history of gold mining is, as with the history of a lot of things, is pretty brutally unpleasant if you get down to the nitty-gritty, and it's always tied up with things like exploitation, colonialism, complex political engagements throughout the world. But then so are a lot of things. So there is a school of thought that says we should stop mining gold. It's pointless. But then there's my view, and my view is this. I think if you can look at gold mining in the same way that you look at tourism and say, this is an opportunity for an area. A lot of the large gold deposits and a lot of unexplored gold terrain is situated in areas where the very poorest people in the world live. And it's such an amazing opportunity for those people to be taken out of poverty and given the same opportunities that the rest of the world has. If it can be done in a sustainable manner that isn't environmentally damaging, and as I hope for the future, as we approach net zero, over the sort of the next 100 years, as we convert to a society that has very little to zero carbon emissions, gold mining can be done without producing carbon emissions, without using only clean or renewable energy. This can be incredibly productive for people. I mean, if you look at the wealth that tourism has brought to, just say, for example, the Mediterranean countries, Italy, Greece, places like that, and other parts of the world that previously would have been, not as well off, not as advantaged as they are today without tourism. I think gold mining can be a tool that's very, very similar to that.
Sure. And one final question. You obviously talked at the very beginning about gold and its concentration within rocks and in terms of ore. With that in mind, obviously gold deposits and gold mining produce far more waste rock than other commodities.
Yes.
Do you think as well in the future that byproducts, aggregates, that kind of thing can be can be extracted and processed alongside the content of gold within ore?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can find uses for the waste coming from gold mines, but I think it's to do. I think the big driver with that is what's associated with the ore. If you have some deposits that are very sort of, say, sulfide rich, you're unlikely to be able to use it for much because it's acid producing. The sulfides decay. If you wanted to use it for roadstone, it's not good quality. The roads will just deteriorate very rapidly. Then, I mean, you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Every deposit's going to differ, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think if you can work to a situation where you can minimise waste or minimise the effect of waste, or use it for something, even for some sort of landscaping opportunity, or just putting it back, I think it needs to be looked at in terms of opportunity rather than something that is a negative thing associated with gold mining.
Yes, absolutely.
I think there's a lot of positives with gold mining.
Okay, that draws the podcast to a close. Thank you for joining us on our Fresh Thinking podcast and for participating in this discussion about gold. So thank you, Julian.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. If you'd like to listen to more of Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro podcasts, then you can find them on our website. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so we can keep you up to date with our technical podcasts in the future. Thank you.